It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy and Rene are here. We've got lots to talk about, including those new revelations about the CIA hacking tools that showed up on WikiLeaks. How private is your smartphone? A couple of revelations from last week's Apple shareholders meeting. Maybe there are new Macs in the future. And why Rene doesn't think there's going to be an event this month to introduce new iPads. It's all coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 549, recorded Tuesday, March 7th, 2017. Weeping Angels. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Eero. Why settle for a Wi-Fi router when you can have a brilliant, hyper-fast, super simple Wi-Fi system? No more buffering, no more dead zones. Finally, Wi-Fi that works. To get Eero, visit EERO.com, Best Buy, or Amazon today. And by Texture. Access the world's most popular magazines anytime, anywhere, using your smartphone or tablet. Try it free for 14 days at texture.com/twit. And by Blue Apron, the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the country. See what's on the menu this week and get 3 meals free with your first purchase with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/MacBreak. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover the Mac, the Windows, the Google, just the Apple, We cover the Apple, the iPhone, the iPad, the Apple Watch, the Apple TV, and of course the Macintosh. Joining me now from his fortress of solitude in snowbound Montreal, Canada, it's Rene Ritchie of imore.com. Hi, Rene.
It's actually freezing rain found today. We got hail last night, and then it just started melting, and then I got back to my car, and it was covered in literally a quarter-inch of ice. Yikes. And you do that trick where you roll down the window, and then you wait for someone to pass by, and you punch through the window, and they all freak out. And
oh, my God. Yeah, that's the worst kind of winter is the freezing
rain. There was
rain.
A great video where a guy pulls up to Tim Hortons, places an order, and then when they come to the drive-thru, he punches through the freezing rain window and grabs a coffee, and everyone is just startled.
Googling it now. Also here.
A bizarre story to tell you about now, one that's taken social media by storm.
Kitchener.
A Kitchener Tim Hortons.
Oh, no, this is a deer crashing through the window.
Yeah, no,
that's a different
deer
story.
needed his coffee. I don't want to judge that deer.
That's a different story.
I got to say, though, that's the best intro I have ever had. A bizarre story coming out of Kitchener.
How about the guy who drove the Zamboni? Drove the Zamboni into the Tim Hortons. That's another. This is very Canadian.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tim Hortons is the center of a lot of our news.
He actually did it through the drive-thru, so that's okay.
I saw that. We have these massive Caterpillar trucks that clean the roads, and every night you go by, and there's like 3 or 4 of them trying to go through the drive-thru. And they look like military machines.
So
it's remarkable.
Funny. That's so funny. Also here, Andy Ihnatko, Chicago Sun-Times. He's no stranger to snow, sleet, rain, dark of night, but he makes his appointed rounds every day.
Yes. The long, deep weekend of the soul is no stranger to my house.
Here we go. Thanks to our chat room who has provided me with video of a man smashing through a window. It's a Reddit, huh? All right, let's see. Punching through the window. Ice. Can you pull it up? Do you know how to do it? No, he doesn't have the. Oh, is that me? That was my page? No, that was you. I don't have Reddit. There you go. That's you. Do you have the video? He's lowering the window up and down, and you see there's a sheet of glass that is really just ice. And then Hulk smash. That's actually
We've all been there.
That would be very funny to drive up to a drive-thru and do that. I'll have a cup of coffee.
Oh, roll up the rim to win. Boom.
It's like cars in Canada have developed like the same genetic evolutionary modification as like lizards and snakes, where they have this second eyelid transparent that covers the real eyelid so that they can deal with more coffee, I guess.
Let's see. I'm going to try to start with a happy story. We could cover the giant WikiLeaks of CIA hacking documents, Apple devices losing their luster in America.
That was a bad reporting story too. I mean, those initial tweets about that were terrible.
The Vault 7 release?
No, the WikiLeaks thing, because the New York Times had a good story, but then they tweeted that they had that the CIA had found a way to crack into the apps themselves, into Signal and WhatsApp and all these systems.
Oh yeah, that was really misrepresenting it, because if you read it, the capability the CIA had was merely to capture it pre-encryption. So
yes.
But if you have a keystroke logger on a computer or a Trojan on a computer, you can watch somebody type the message. You can't catch it in transit, but you can catch it if you own the phone.
That's very different than
very different capability.
Feeding encryption in Signal.
Yeah,
and
they have
iMessage.
to own your phone. They can't just do they can't capture all Signal's traffic, just traffic of people whose phone they own. But if they own your phone, dude, it doesn't really much matter what you're doing. Yeah, you're right. That was kind of a misrepresentation. You had to read it more carefully to understand. And it's certainly not as big of a threat. But this was a big WikiLeaks. 7,818 web pages, 943 attachments, several hundred million lines of computer code belonging, they say, to the Central Intelligence Agency. The story here really is that in the past, in the United States, it's the NSA, the National Security Agency, that's done all the hacking work. They have very, very, very good hackers. You may remember in the movie... what is it? The one with Damon and Affleck, Finding Will.
I thought you were going to say Sneakers.
No. What's the name of it?
Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting. He gets a job offer from the NSA and has a very eloquent refusal. But even then, they're looking for brilliant mathematicians, right? Because the NSA has the greatest tools. The story, apparently, according to the New York Times, is that the CIA never liked it, that they had to go through the NSA revealing operational details to get hacking tools. So they just hired a few hackers of their own, like 1,000.
Kids, once making the jailbreaks on a job.
They're also buying commercial exploits. They're also working with MI5 and other intelligence agencies. Like, I don't know if they were swapping techniques, but the report said that they're getting some from other intelligence agencies. So this just another indication that if there is any way to break into any sort of device to get past any sort of method of maintaining a secret, the CIA and the NSA and MI5 are really working hard to get at it. And it's if it's not even just a political story. It means that if they have found if there is a new way of getting at the data inside of your iPhone, that means that there is it's not because they worked with Apple to develop a worm for it. It means that there is a vulnerability that anybody can exploit. And the only people who are paying clever mathematicians and programmers more money than the government are private illegal industries. So that means that there's a lack of security that affects all of us. So I'm sure that Apple is reading every single comma, every single keystroke of this document to get some sort of a hint as to how people are getting into an iPhone or an iOS or a macOS device, and make sure that stops working.
Of course, it was only a month ago that a hacker leaked out Cellebrite's iOS bypassing tools, which showed how Cellebrite was able to get into iPhones. Really, the issue that you raised about hacking into WhatsApp and Signal and Telegram, as discussed in the New York Times, Rene, is that if somebody has access to your phone, and so really the more interesting tools would be the tools that allow a bad guy to get into your phone and stay there.
Phishing and
yeah. And if those tools exist, of course, and leak out, the risks are huge. WikiLeaks said they did not release code until, and they will not release code until, quote, a consensus emerges on the technical and political nature of the CIA's program and how such weapons should be analyzed, disarmed, and published. So they're not saying we won't release the code. They're just saying we haven't done it yet. And WikiLeaks has been a little bit under a cloud of late, as apparently Julian Assange has some political agenda as well. But one code named Weeping Angel uses Samsung smart televisions to listen in. And according to WikiLeaks, even when it appears to be turned off, the television operates as a bug, recording conversations and sending them over the internet to a covert CIA server. This is one of the programs developed.
Is that a Doctor Who reference? Like, don't blink, don't ever blink. Weeping Angels.
It might be because it was British intelligence that developed
Can't
it.
even blink.
Weeping Angel. Mm-hmm. Isn't that interesting? Is that a Doctor Who reference?
Yeah, it's those. They exist out of quantum time. So if you look at them, they can't move. But the minute you look away from them, they can kill you. So you can't even take your eyes off.
Oh my God,
Terrifying.
that is bizarre. Swamp Monkey. How you like that one? What does Swamp Monkey do?
Drain them. Drain them all.
Drain them all. What is Eggs Mayhem? And I love Ricky Bobby, straight out of Talladega Nights.
Eggs Mayhem sounds like a Twitter troll account.
The leaks we'd seen before, the NSA tools all had two names, two random words names, and it was clear they had a computer program. Because you don't want to assign a code name that kind of gives information about what the tool is for. So there were wild kind of random combinations. It sounds like the CIA has not been quite as careful in their naming protocol.
Shoulder surfer, what does that mean? Velociraptor.
Shoulder surfer. I wonder what it does. I wonder what Velociraptor. This is all Gizmodo has been going through these documents. These are all revealed by Gizmodo. I guess there's some good reading there.
Yeah. Well, it's a serious subject, but I'm always impressed and a little bit glad to see that no matter how evil these tools are, the team did find a way to collaborate on a really cool logo for it. Yeah, they all wanted the patch to throw on their jacket, so they at least have a design sense that is worthy of emulation.
Paintball teams.
But I mean, the problem with WikiLeaks, really any leak, is that you always have to factor in who people rarely leak information without some sort of an agenda. Sometimes the agenda is to the benefit of the people they're leaking the information to, but you always have to keep that in the back of your mind. Is there a reason why this information is being leaked out? Is there a reason why it's being leaked out at this precise moment? Nonetheless, it really does underscore that you really have to take an entirely fresh new attitude towards the devices you bring into your home. When Samsung came out, admitted that it's possible that they're collecting more information than is on an engineering basis necessary to do voice recognition for their TVs, it made me realize that maybe I should have an entirely separate Wi-Fi network just for smart devices. And so I could make sure that this TV, whatever TV I buy, only knows about this one network, and this network is shut off unless this TV is saying, I will not proceed unless you allow me to. I have not connected to the internet in 1 year. I need to check for system updates. And then you put out, go into the office, turn on the 5-year-old 802.11.b Wi-Fi base station that I took out of the trash. Keep it up long enough for this thing to check in with mom and download an update, then turn it off again, because you have to operate under the assumption that it is transacting data that you do not approve of and that you won't let out of your house.
There's one called Fine Dining that lets a hacker look like they're using VLC or playing the game 2048 when actually they're using the interface to do some serious hacking. There's Magical Mutt. Don't noob it up so hard next time is the advice in the documents. Now, if you're curious if WikiLeaks had an agenda with this, it's hard to imagine that WikiLeaks would be able to fabricate this, 7,000 pages. But the timing and the nature of the release, all you have to do is go look at Alex Jones' InfoWars to see what the agenda might be, because according to the release, some of the tools were Russian tools that the CIA had stolen. And, of course, Alex Jones, who's the king of the false flag operation, even to the point where he says that the Sandy Hook massacre was a false flag government or plan, which is obviously insane. He says, you see, this is what happened. The CIA stole Russian tools and then faked a Russian hack of the election. And I wouldn't put it past Julian Assange for putting that story forward either. As we're always, as from now on, through the looking glass with this kind of stuff. Nevertheless, and the other thing I see this a lot, and I really want to know what you guys think. What happens is this, bits and pieces like the Samsung TV thing, that for sure will be featured on local news tonight. And what happens is normal people who aren't, super sophisticated and are not reading the details, that's their takeaway. My Samsung TV is spying on me. And every time I talk to normal people on the radio show, I did a San Francisco radio show. That was one of the calls in the San Francisco radio show. I hear my Samsung TV is listening in on me. What should I do? There's a huge amount of paranoia now throughout the country from people who say, well, am I being spied upon all the time? Are we?
You have to worry about what doors are unlocked and open on your network now. That's for sure. But it's also important to understand that it's the technical problem of recording every scrap of audio that comes in through your kitchen, through your Google Home or your Amazon Echo is a huge waste of engineering. It's not something that they would build into the device unless they were kind of forced to do so. You really have to, it's upon people like us to say that, no, it has enough CPU power to recognize when a trigger word has been spoken. And if you want some idea of how limited the power of this resource is, realize you can't just arbitrarily choose what your trigger word is. You have to use the word they give you or choose between one of three. And so it really is only listening after it's been told to listen.
Right.
But
I tell people
I think that I think that's going to be part of the responsibility of the makers of all these things. If Apple were to make a device like that, they need to have something, just like they have a whole section of their website to explain, here's what our eco policy is, here's how recyclable each of these products are. It's also going to be important for these companies to say, here is how we are listening to you, and here are the limits of what can be done, and we will not, and we'll put a canary on this page. So if you ever see that page go down or change, you know that something has changed or they've been forced to make a change. But yeah, they're going to have to be part of the marketing, because I would like for the coming generation or the current generation of consumers to understand that you have a phone that just the fact that you are not even operating this phone, but your phone is on your body in this presence, means that there can be boxes that simply collect every scrap of data. I'm sorry, collect every identity of every phone that's in this area. And although this isn't as scary as a hidden box scraping your phone for contacts and messages, the fact that it can say, well, let's see, Andy was here, then he was there, and who else was there? These three people who were also in the same location as Andy 3 weeks ago. Aha. That's the sort of stuff that makes you at least aware that these things can happen, and maybe you should buy a copper-lined bag to put your phone in when you're not using it.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I think like vendors have a huge responsibility here. We saw originally with Touch ID, Apple went to the trouble of making a secure hardware channel that was very hard to break into, where some other vendors just put full res fingerprint images in a world readable directory, at least at first. And now on the new MacBook Pro, they've put the camera indicator. There's a little light that goes on when your camera's in use. They've started embedding that into the secure enclave, making it much harder for anybody to exploit that and, for example, turn on the camera but turn off the light. And that's the same sort of thing I want to see here. Like, I want to know that TV is not off, not that all these speakers that we have, they're just one exploit away from being turned on. And I'd like to have something that I know from a reasonable hardware perspective just simply can't be done without my awareness. And I think that's their responsibility to provide. That
was one of the brilliant things of the design of Apple's first EyeSight camera, their FireWire camera you put on top of your monitor, that instead of a little light that tells you that, oh, the camera is on, the camera is off, you can actually twist the front of it to put into place a white physical barrier over the lens, so that it doesn't matter what's happening electronically. Photons are going to be stymied by this piece of physical metal in front of it. So yeah, I mean, I would love there to be a mechanical kill switch or an electronic kill switch that says tapping this button doesn't simply tell the software inside this device to mute the microphone. It means there is now no electrical connection between the microphone and this thing. Maybe even the best way to do it is you can stick a coin in there as a screwdriver, twist it, and actually unplug the microphone and actually put it next to the thing, so you know that, okay, this is the microphone. It is not connected to anything, so I know this thing is safe now.
Yeah, with an Amazon Echo, there's a button on it to mute it, but you have to trust that Amazon's actually doing that.
Right, same thing with the Google Home.
And I think that some people have the concern that somebody just mentioned this in the chat room. See, this is the problem with this kind of conspiracy thinking and paranoia, is there's no end to it. It goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And so some people are saying, well, what if Amazon has other keywords that they're listening for? So you don't know you're triggering it. It silently triggers and records. To this point, remember that there was a murder case, a 2015 murder case in Bentonville, Arkansas. The police had subpoenaed Amazon Echo data. They'd already received data from the water company. The local water company was we're going to call it the hot tub murders. A man was found murdered in a hot tub. And part of the evidence the police want to use against his buddy, who was in the house at the time, is this massive use of water in the middle of the night. The presumption is he's washing away blood. They also asked for the Amazon Echo data. Amazon was fighting it using a First Amendment defense. They have now, because the defendant has agreed to let police review the information on the Echo, Amazon is handing it over. So they fought, but not for very long or very hard. But I have to think, there can't be. This is a fishing expedition on the part of the police. They're hoping that, maybe the guy, when he's being murdered, shouted, "Echo, the murderer is."
How do you dispose of a body, Echo?
Yeah. I don't know. Witnesses say that the Echo was playing music that evening, so it was in use.
It's tantalizing. And again, if you're investigating a murder and you want this murderer to come to justice, and you know that there is, you're tech savvy enough to know that there might be some sort of a buffer that is at least, examining this incoming stream for a trigger word. Is it possible that there might even be 8 seconds worth of audio that could be forensically useful? You really have to go and try to get that data. I think that's part of your responsibility. But there's also
the iPhone data, or the whatever the phone the guy's using.
Right, but it's interesting because now you can get into the next legal step, which is, can we, instead of asking for it, instead of a case by case, we're going to issue warrants for it, can we make the legal claim that from a legal point of view, a microphone that I, as a homeowner, willfully place inside my house, is that like my putting a window in my house, where it's okay for a police officer to park across the street and operate binoculars and look through the window? If that's they're clearly not equivalent things. But again, if you think that this is a really valuable tool, like, I would love to be able to activate an Echo microphone inside someone's house without having to really go through all the steps that would be necessary to break in and plant a bug there. That's how tantalizing this stuff can be. That's why you really have to fight for the principle and make sure that although you don't deny law enforcement the tools they need to do their job, you make sure that you're not sacrificing something more important. I'm willing to let them fight for that. I'm willing to let them, again, send an actual piece of meatware in a car to a judge to talk to another piece of meatware in the legal system and explain why you need this exemption. I would be very, very concerned if, just as a matter of course, you can just, let's flip on every Amazon Echo of every white male between the ages of 17 and 33 within a 5-mile radius of this place, and see if load some software that looks for the the phrase, "Yeah, I done it. It's a fair cop. I done it. I did."
Yeah. Well, that's why you want to pick a company that's going to do what it can to protect your privacy, even if it's futile in the long run. If if you think about it, your iPhone has the same capability. All it takes is a trigger word, unless you've turned that feature off, to get Siri to listen.
I was talking to a friend the other day, and he was debating the merits of an illegal U-turn when there was nobody physically around to see it. And then you were wondering, but really, are there physical people anymore? Yeah. Are there cameras? Are there satellites? How far are we away from when we're just continuously monitored all the time everywhere?
Well, let's say he got dinged for it. This is a trivial case, but if the police wanted to, they could get his phone, have tracking information from his GPS, a recording perhaps of him saying, "Should we do it?"
Yeah, that was the old thing. Is like, do they catch you doing something wrong, or do they decide they want you and then find something wrong that you did?
Forget pre-crime. They don't need to worry about that. They got you.
Yeah.
And it's recording all the time. So, but my question again, should we be paranoid?
Yes. I mean, it's not even just paranoid. Like, accidents happen. We have all these tools and technologies, and we've seen companies do dumb things just by accident. Like, Samsung was collecting information they shouldn't. Now they turned it off. But these things are just their tools. They're in our house, and they're open microphones. And and they're open video cameras, and we should. And you can make fun of Mark Zuckerberg for putting bits of tape on his computer, or you can think, hey, you know, I have kids, I have family in here, and I'm going to make sure that the camera is unplugged unless we're using it, or it has tape over it unless I'm using it, or this microphone isn't on unless I'm using it. I think that's not paranoid. I think that's a rational choice that you can make. It's the continual, perpetual fight between convenience and security, and we all have to make that judgment on a case-by-case basis.
Both encouraging and discouraging. Go ahead, Andy.
I'm just saying I have black tape on all of my all of my cameras, not because I think that anybody's going to snoop, but it's just prudent. Also because the number of times where I have like a WebEx briefing and they didn't tell me that they were going to be looking for video, and and so like I've got my I just woke up 20 minits ago, t-shirt on, I haven't shaved. I
Do
have
you
it
tape your
covered up
iPhone too, Andy?
Not my iPhone.
Why not?
But I'm worried about times when the camera might be on and it's not on, given that, you know, I use the iPad everywhere and I use my MacBook everywhere. And it's such a simple thing for me to do. There is no downside to it. When I need it, I can easily just peel it off, put it to the side, then put it back on again. There is no reason for me not to do that. And so
if the feds are listening, you want to turn on the camera on his phone.
It's not just feds too. Like some of us work at home, and every once in a while you do see a significant other who's not aware that you're having a video conference walk around in the background, and you want to say, yeah, and like, I mean, it's everyday little privacy things.
Yeah, close the door.
Yeah,
put a lock on the door. Yeah, so I mean, even paranoids have enemies. It's I don't know if there's a good way to do this really, unless you throw out all the technology.
And we have no privacy coming. Automation is going to take our jobs. I just don't know what to do with the future. It's going to. But it's not Star Trek.
That's just to touch on this. I mean, though, that's the reason why you really have to be aware of the principle and fight for the principle, because let's say that you might have been comfortable with Obama having an incredibly rich wiretapping program and surveillance program in place, saying, well, you know, I trust this person, I trust this administration, I trust the people that he hires to use this responsibly. And then you have another administration that, regardless of who they actually are, you personally don't trust. And then, well, are you okay with this person having it? And then let's say Hillary runs again. Now you're like, okay, let's have an imaginary third candidate that is like, I believe that I should be something. I like the cut of Kim Jong-il's jib. I don't like his haircut, but I love the way he runs his business. I don't see why I can't just execute people that I don't like. If people are politically weird to me, I don't see why I shouldn't be able to eliminate them. Then you realize that, well, because you said nothing for 2 or 3 different presidential administrations, now you've got this person who has all of this apparatus at his or her disposal, and you wish that you had said, I trust Donald Trump to use these tools responsibly, but in principle, I don't think any agency should have that level of power, because I'm worried about the person who, you know, I'm not worried necessarily about Obama taking away my guns. I'm worried about a president in the future using whatever weakening of the First Amendment Second Amendment issues to then take away my guns. And
and furthermore, I mean, this has all been through 3 administrations now. This started in 9/11, and this you know, it hasn't been slow. Everything began really on September 12th. Not
just the U.S.
Yeah, and that's the other point, right? I mean, look at these tools, these CIA tools. They're in cooperation with GCHQ.
Yeah,
and I'm sure Canada's doing something similar too.
And it's not just the president; it's every employee who has access to these things.
Right.
So I mean, that's where the fun begins.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. I had both encouragement and discouragement yesterday. We interviewed Mark Rogers, who's SecOps for DEF CON. So that's pretty good for 15 years. But he's also does security for chief of security for Cloudflare. Really smart guy, a hacker, admittedly black hat in his youth, white hat now. And he had a couple of observations. One was, because I asked him, well, wouldn't the NSA have everything that went on during the election? He said, probably they had it. But you have to understand they're collecting so much data now, and even with this new Utah data center, they can't keep it all. So he said after about a month, they're destroying this stuff. And I think he probably knows. He's probably, well connected. So that was kind of encouraging in some ways that, they have to kind of, they probably do some sort of triage and say, well, we'll save that, but we're going to throw out Leo Laporte's stuff. But that Rene Ritchie, let's keep his communications because he's from Canada. And then, so that's one thing that was somewhat encouraging. I was also a little discouraged because he'd also worked for 10 years for Vodafone, the British telco. And I asked him, well, what kind of conduit is there between private and the government? And he said, well, having worked with a telco for 10 years and not specifically naming Vodafone, I just know that everybody's given up anything that the government wants. And as somebody said in the chat room, Apple fights these requests in public, but in private, they hand it over. They don't have much choice to their, no company in the U.S. anyway has much choice. So you could pretty much assume that there is a big fat pipe between your private business and your government. And I think it may, I don't know if it's too late, but I almost think it's over, right?
Well, there's remember that historically law enforcement has had the ability to get to power company records, to get to phone records, and I think my personal reaction to that is that, again, in the course of an investigation where they can prove that, the husband left a voicemail message about, hi honey, it's 10:23 p.m. right now at 10:23 p.m. and I'm 150 miles away and it would take me about 2.5 hours to get here and it's 10:23. I just thought I'd call you now at 10:23 p.m. To tell you that I won't be home for another 90 minutes because I can't possibly get home in less than that because I am, as I said, 150 miles away at 10:23 p.m. Well, let's just check those phone records to see what time phone calls came in. I said, nope.
You can't lie.
Turns out
anymore.
he left that message. Yeah, exactly.
So
we don't think that we again, I think we're okay with them having certain tools. It's just a problem of understanding what happens when you keep going more and more and more. It's like the classic problem of the frog in the pot of water.
Right.
That's warm water. Then it's boiling water, and by the time he realizes he's in danger, he's dead.
Worse than that, at this point, it's gotten to the point where I'm more worried about government surveillance than I am about terrorists. The whole thing was to protect us against terrorism. And maybe it's done such a good job that we haven't have anything to fear.
We let them win. We've become a.
But they won. They won.
Lost our state.
And now we're stuck with this surveillance state, and that isn't going away, regardless.
No, see, what worries me is even more than the idea of the surveillance state is if things get so difficult or so easy, there's so much public support for for the campaign promise of, we're going to keep you safe from the terrorists, that it's like we are now going to make it illegal for you to encrypt your conversations.
Yeah,
we're
it feels
make
like it started with good motivations, and then they said, hey, this is great. There'll never be another crime again. It's not, forget terrorists. We know everything.
I think that, again, if they keep increasing the water, the heat of that pot of water, we could find yourselves in a situation where now Apple and Google are required to to include backdoors. They're required to not use technologies where they don't have the ability to get into their own devices. That there's going to have to be some way of breaking through whatever encryption or whatever protection a consumer tries to put on it. They don't do that in one jump. No more than. Yeah, I'm about to go into a political thing, so I'm not going to. They don't do that in one leap. They do that in a series of leaps so that you're just taking one small further step to say, well, now that we've established that we can have government people in place in every large company that is in charge of communications to observe things, wouldn't it be, you don't want to have this woman like in an office. What if we were just to automate things by having a back door and we only have the keys to it and we could do this remotely? And then again, because it's 10 years later and we've been warned, company's been worn down, so that does make sense. It'd be so easy for us to just have some sort of a master key that of course you'd have to email us to ask us for it on a case-by-case basis, but yeah, we'll put it back. We'll weaken the security of everything we have. So that's the thing that we should be worried about. Not paranoid about, but at least aware about.
Well, and that's my big issue is I see people frozen in paranoia. And what I really worry about is that people will start to eschew technology. They'll stop carrying smartphones. They'll turn their back on the internet. We'll go back to a pre-technology age because people are so paranoid and so afraid. And maybe that's justified. But it makes me sad because I think we've made great progress. Technology is a great tool for good. and it makes me sad. And this is what we cover. This is what we do. And we're, to some degree, evangelists for this stuff.
I thought of that, but then I realized that it wouldn't matter. There's just so much satellite and surveillance and cameras and microphones just ambient now that it's really the little brother.
Yeah, that doesn't matter, does it? Even if I don't carry a smartphone, everybody in this room has a smartphone. So
and if you go to the park to have a conversation, there's multiple surveillance cameras everywhere anyway, on the bank machine across the roof, and the parking lot across the street. And
I think that you have a nice park near you that's pretty remote, and you'd be pretty safe to go out there and have a conversation. I'm thinking.
Totally, it'll take him a good 10 minutes to retask anything over that area.
All right. I didn't mean to get. In fact, I specifically started this show saying we are not going to cover this depressing subject.
The movie Blue Thunder warned us about this in the 1980s, and we didn't listen.
Well, that's partly why I also feel like
Call is out there somewhere. He's got his team.
Yeah. When you see fiction doing this, sometimes that makes me think, well, this is just a natural. This paranoid rut is a natural tire track for our human minds to go into. Doesn't necessarily mean that there's something we should worry about, because fiction's gone there before us. It is a well-worn rut. It is a natural thing for us to be paranoid.
I hate to say this, but we've had this problem for years. People wanted, the minute we had fingerprint technology, they wanted to fingerprint everybody. The minute we had DNA technology, they wanted to DNA check everybody. And we had people of character and principle and integrity stand up and say no. They said, we understand that this would help you, but this is an intrusion on everybody's civil liberties, and it's just something that we as a state are not prepared to tolerate, and we lack those individuals now. Doesn't matter what party, doesn't matter what country, we lack those individuals of character, and that is our biggest problem right now.
Meanwhile, Apple stock at a record high. Congratulations. All right, we're going to take it.
Warren Buffett's buying.
Wow, I watched I highly recommend the Becoming Warren Buffett documentary on HBO if you have access to that. Really, really great documentary. It makes you feel pretty darn good about Warren, and pretty happy that he's made so much money last month on Apple. Here's a guy.
That's all take really nicely him.
He's given it all back, he made the largest single charitable donation in the history of all time, something like $34 billion to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and continues to donate everything he makes. It's very clear when you watch the documentary, he couldn't care less about the money. He has breakfast at McDonald's, and his wife gives him the exact amount of the breakfast, and he says, if the stock market's down, I buy the Egg McMuffin with sausage because it's only $2.15. He saves 30 cents when the stock market's down. This guy lives in the same house he's lived in for 40 plus years, and so he doesn't care about the money. He cares about the game. He loves playing the game. He's winning, by the way, and the money he's gonna give to Bill and Melinda to use for charity, which I think is amazing. It's a great documentary.
We play tower defense. He plays Wall Street.
Yeah, pretty much that's it. It's like his mind, it was like the perfect tool for winning on Wall Street, and that's just what he does, and he loves doing that, and he's happy, and he's a very simple guy. It's really interesting. He doesn't take pleasure from almost anything.
Very clean with the great-grandkids. And
he's a sweet guy, yeah. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back with a little bit more in just a moment. I wonder what Warren Buffett's anti-espionage strategy is. He reads newspapers. I bet he has a flip phone. Maybe a Nokia 3310. Our show, for those of you who do want to be online, I read a great article. Oh, this was such a good article in Ars Technica this week about Wi-Fi got so bad. And it's very interesting. And I learned a lot about how Wi-Fi works. For instance, the Wi-Fi network is it's not a collision. Ethernet's collision based. So if two packets collide, they wait for a random amount of time and resend. Actually, it's kind of how Wi-Fi works. Two Wi-Fi access points, even if they're not yours. Let's say you see, what do you see when you go to the Wi-Fi on your Mac? When you drop that down, you see a bunch of access points, even some very weak ones. Anything that's visible to you has priority. So if your Wi-Fi, and this is why we don't let people use Wi-Fi when they're on Skype with us, if your Wi-Fi sees another conversation going on, it steps back and stops until only one conversation at a time. So if you have 9 Wi-Fi access points in your area that you can see, you all take turns. No wonder your Wi-Fi sucks. And then, of course, we're doing more with it. We want more. We want more speed. Something had to break. And what it was and it's been what I think it's a year. They're celebrating their anniversary. 1 Eero, they call it, of Eero, EERO. They were the ones that broke the logjam with the first real mesh Wi-Fi system you can set up in your home. The single router method is just not working. So the way Eero works is you put an Eero unit throughout your house. Each one's about 1,500 square feet of coverage. So a couple of units for most homes, 3 units for a larger home. You can even do more. Or if there's a challenge, like my mom, it's not that our house is so big, but she has a studio out back, and I need to get out there. So I set up a 4 Eero system for her, and it's amazing. It's amazing and easy to set up, too, because you do it all with the Eero app on your phone or your tablet. The world's first whole home Wi-Fi system blankets your entire house in fast, reliable Wi-Fi. It's not a repeater system. It's much, much better. It's mesh. In fact, one of the great things about Eero, I was talking about this also with Mark Rogers yesterday, is Eero is one of those class of Internet of Things devices that was overbuilt. They have more processor and more RAM than they need because they know over time they're going to want to enhance the software, and they do push out new software automatically. We just got 2.0 about a month ago that improves the mesh even more. Of course, it does all the things that we tell you to do, like WPA2 encryption. You have all the features. It even has some advanced features that I use for my server. You can reserve an IP address. You can port forward, all that stuff, but easy. And if you're not experienced like my mom, the stuff she sees is very simple. The Eero Wi-Fi system, amazing. 1-year warranty. It'll work with whatever your existing modem is and your existing internet service. There is a 30-day money-back guarantee. Set it up and try it. It's also beautiful in your house. It looks great. You won't mind having Eero all over the place. Eero, the original whole home Wi-Fi system. To celebrate its first birthday, prices have been permanently lowered. I love this. 3-pack, 3 Eeros, enough for 4,500 square feet, $100 off, $399. 2-pack, $299. That's $50 off. Get your Eero going. Get your Eero on, and you will never hear that complaint. Hey, the Wi-Fi's down. Why is Netflix buffering? What's going on? EERO.com. You can also get it at Best Buy and Amazon. Nothing but raves. Nothing but raves for Eero. I mean, if I set my mom up with an Eero, that tells you something, because I don't want to hear from her. She's in Rhode Island. I want some. By the way, which is cool, I don't have my phone with me, but I can look at her network. So if she did call and say, hey, I'm having trouble, I could say, oh, yeah, let me look, and I could see if I can literally see the bandwidth speed to each of the Eero points. I could see if they're all up. It's really nice. The software is really good. EERO.com. We thank them for their support. Any invitations yet for the spring iPad event? Anybody?
I've been thinking about this, and the more I think about it, the less likely I think there just doesn't seem like anything big enough to warrant an event. If you look at iPad Pro updates, those are new processors and basically balancing out the feature set.
Even if they did a 10.5-inch iPad Pro, would that?
I don't think that's ready, and I don't think just by itself. I mean, like last year, it took several things. It took the Baby Pro, it took the iPhone SE, and even that was only a town hall event. Not only a town hall, but it was a very small capacity event. And absent any really big shattering products, I think we'll just as soon. I'm sure there'll be new products, but I don't know if Apple's going to unwrap Town Hall one last time for the 3rd time in a row.
So no event.
I don't know. Maybe. I might get an invitation the minute we stop recording this. I keep thinking of what could they introduce this fall that would warrant. Sorry, this spring that would warrant an event.
And that I like that. I agree with you. You make a good case.
And they have a lot of different ways of getting the information out there. They could easily just simply say, let's rent a hotel suite in San Francisco. Oh, excuse me. Let's set aside a couple of days in Cupertino. Let's get a hotel suite in New York for a couple of days, and we will just simply hand brief, let's say, 2 or 3 dozen people about this and make sure they get it'll be so much simpler. It'll be so much more direct. They don't have to concentrate on crafting a keynote level message. They can just simply say, they've dealt with Rene enough one-on-one. They've dealt with me, for instance, and Gruber enough one-on-one to know what we're interested in. They could easily do these sort of announcements on a very low-key way and just have press releases about it.
I think you're right. That makes a lot of sense.
I'm with Rene. I'm with Rene. I don't know for sure one way or another. I would guess that there is not going to be an event in March, and I would not put any money against there being no event in the spring. No, again, anything that would involve someone having to, anything that would involve a live stream of any kind.
So they do a briefing with you guys. They do a press release. They get all the coverage, the same kind of coverage, The Verge and Engadget and everybody, Macworld, iMore, they'll all
I would
write
love
the
an
same
event, don't get me
stories.
wrong, but yeah, it's a lot of work.
Well, and then you got to fly down to San Francisco. That makes a lot of sense. And it also, let's be honest, takes some of the glitter away from WWDC, which is in June, and from the iPhone 10th anniversary edition, which is this fall. So, yeah.
Yeah, and usually, I mean, they don't always have the spring event. They had it when they introduced the iPhone, the original iPad, the iPad 2, the iPad 3. They skipped it for 2 years, and they brought it back for the Apple Watch official launch, along with the new MacBook. But every time they've done it, it's been because they've had substantially new products that they just felt they had to give stage time to. Because every time they hold an event, it's a huge thing for the company. It's a lot of resources and a lot of planning. And again, iPhone is in the fall, and it's unclear that there's anything. I would love to have it. Totally love to have it, but it's unclear there's anything that would actually require them to get 100 to 200 people together in a room.
Definitely reflect on the fact that this is not a pickup CYO basketball game. You don't just have the janitor unlock the doors and make sure that they can sweep up at the end of it. It really is like putting on an off-Broadway show, or at least the way that Apple does it. So, yeah, I think that they're going to be very carefully weighing what they're going to get out of having an open event like that.
$1 million podium just to make sure that the phone turns around properly.
We didn't really cover it, but last week while we were doing the show, Apple was having its annual shareholders meeting in Cupertino. And at that meeting, Tim Cook said some encouraging things. He said, "We're not abandoning pro users. You will see us do more," he said, with Macs and professional software. Creative and pro market is very important to the company. He said this is the last shareholder meeting we'll have at One Infinite Loop next year. Apple Park at the Steve Jobs Theater. There was a shareholder proposal to diversify upper-level management. The shareholders decided they'd prefer the results they're getting and didn't want to rock the boat, so they rejected that.
It's a hard case to. I mean, Apple's an old company. If Apple was formed today, they'd have a very different looking upper executive just because of the people around. But that doesn't take them off the hook for the board of directors.
They've had women in the upper division in the past, but it's all white men right now, right? Except for
well, I mean, it's been the same. It's not that it's all white men. It's been exactly the same people, more or less, for the last 10, 15 years. But again, they could change the board of directors. If I am the least qualified to speak to how difficult or easy this would be, but if I would just like it for optics' sake, and that's the horrible way to phrase it. But I think Apple could do a lot just by changing their board of directors. And Steve Jobs famously changed the entire board of directors one day. And if you suddenly had a board of directors,
that was not for diversity purposes.
No, but I mean, if there is something that you think is of benefit, and you believe that diversity is really powerful enough, and you don't have a lot of movement in the upper senior vice president positions, then the board of directors is the place you go.
Yeah, but I think the shareholders are looking at Johnny Ive and Eddie Q and Craig Federighi and, yes, Angela Arendts, who is a senior vice president for retail. And
Eddie Q is Cuban.
But things are Phil Schiller. Things are going well. You know, why rock the boat? There are a few women on the board in the upper level management. Lisa Jackson is the vice president for environmental policy and social initiatives, and Denise Young Smith, an African American woman, is VP for human resources.
Again, Eddie Q is Cuban, but I mean, it's not what a modern company really has.
Yeah, if you look at the board, there are two women, but it's Al Gore, former chairman of Genentech, Arthur Levinson, James Bell from Boeing, Tim Cook, of course, Robert Iger from Disney, and a couple of women, Susan Wagner from BlackRock and Andrea Young from Grameen.
Well, that's the historical. You can't get around a certain fact that if you believe that diversity amongst a community of professionals is important, there is nothing stopping you from doing that. The talent is out there, the brains are out there, the people who will work well with that group are out there. You just have to figure out what you're doing wrong to not get them in. And fix that problem. So this sounds a lot harsher than I'm actually intending it to be. I mean that if Apple doesn't have a diverse board or diverse management, it's because they don't think that's super important to them. They could definitely do it, I think. And I really need to. I wish that I were writing this because I could stare at a sentence and change it 90 times. I firmly believe in the basic truth of that statement that if you need to hire 10 engineers there is nothing stopping you from hiring 5. There is no excuse that says that we could not find 5 talented women to fill these positions. It's because you did not want to work hard enough. You didn't think that was a high enough priority to actually do it. That said, I'm not saying that is as simple as it's as simple as that. But again, if Apple felt that this is part of their definition as a company, they could do that. Again, this is a vote that the shareholders took. The shareholders are going to take a point of view of, we're only here to make sure that X dollars coming in brings back to us a factor X times Y of dollars coming back out. But again, it's every single tech company from the large to the small has to face that fact that unless you're a group of friends that are basing your business on social connections, and you just don't happen to have a whole lot of male friends or female friends or non-white friends. Once you get to the scale of Microsoft or Google or Apple, you have to at least confront the fact that the reason why our hiring of women, of people who are non-white men, is dismal. It's because this is not a problem that we're making it a high priority to solve.
Cook didn't mention anything about iPads, but he did say, like new iPads, but he did say the iPad Pro has been nicely received. So that's good. He repeated the assertion from the analyst call that his company couldn't make enough of the Apple Watch Series 2, and that last quarter was the best one yet for the wearable. He said the AirPods are a cultural phenomenon. I don't know if that's really that's not okay. How are they selling though? And I maybe I have a bad pair, but I still
they're not in stock yet. Yeah.
Yeah, I continue to have problems with my AirPods dropping calls, and I got that weird problem again where I was making a call and the voice was pitched. In the past, I've had it too high. It's like the bit rate gets screwed up in the Bluetooth. Nobody else is reporting this though, so maybe I just have a bad pair.
The only problem I have is that I can't use them with Slack, but I can't use Bluetooth with Slack, so I've gotten used to.
Well, that's not. Yeah, that's normal.
Gotten used to it.
Yeah. He noted that Apple Pay quote hit an air pocket. Now, that's bizarre because an air pocket could lift you up or it could plummet you to the ground. So I'm not sure what he means by that. I think he means it's a good thing.
That's what the captain says to say, please don't look on the left-hand side of the plane.
We hit an air pocket. Now, here's the...
An air pocket got sucked into our number 2 engine, causing blades of air to shear off and embed themselves into of air pocket to...
That's no air pocket. That's a hot pocket.
We just thought it would be nice to land in Dulles instead of San Francisco today.
Just for a change. The weather's better.
Had an Air Force base that on a disused runway.
He also mentioned 20 million subscribers to Apple Music. Now that you can compare to Spotify's announcement this week that they hit 50 million paid subscribers. That is more than twice Apple Music. It's interesting that Spotify is still growing. And we talked a little bit about this on Twitter on Sunday, and 2 of the panelists, the young members of the panel, both were, avid Spotify users. I love Spotify. I'm not a subscriber, but it really is a great system.
I just think it shows the market is still growing.
Well, it is clearly, but the problem really is, can Spotify survive? I think they're losing money. The record industry has a stake in Spotify, but at any point they could pull the plug, I think. Same for any of these independent services. Yeah. Apple Music can continue because it's Apple and they have other revenue streams.
It's like Windows Phone and Microsoft.
Right. Good comparison.
I think one of the reasons why, one of the few things that Spotify has going for it is that I think the record industry does want to have a streaming service that's small enough that they can push it around.
Yeah.
They can't push around Google. They can't push around Apple. They've got so much. Both those companies have so much inventory right now, and to say that I don't want my product to be on the defining music service of what is on most of the phones in the world, and the defining music service that's on the rest of the phones in the world, you don't have that ability. They need to have a safe house to go back to. I did want to say something. Not back to AirPods. It reminded me of like one of my favorite tweets from last week. Julia Love, who is a journalist at Reuters, I think, said that new Silicon Valley courtship ritual is teens sharing AirPods on the bus.
I do that with my wife, actually.
Which is adorable. Isn't that adorable? It's like it's like those old movies on Turner Classic Movies, like Andy Hardy and his date, like at the malt shop.
To what I'm listening to?
Sipping from ice cream soda from two different straws.
Yeah, oh, so cute. No, we were walking. We were on a hike, and she wanted to listen to a book, and I said, "Hey, let's listen to it on my phone because I have my AirPods with me, and you can have one, I can have the other." It worked great. So that actually is one of the
tether your heads together or pull out of one person.
Yeah, it's no good if you use it. We've done that before with the wires, and it really doesn't work. So it's really a great solution. So I'm not surprised. By the way, Julia Love should be writing about courtship rituals. That is awesome. Let's see what else. Second gen Apple TV is obsolete. No more hardware support. You think we'll see a new Apple TV this year? We need to see a 4K Apple TV, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, it's arguably not the biggest problem Apple TV has, but new hardware is good. I mean, the problem, one of the biggest problems they have with that box is like, who is it meant to be for? And they could have done a 4K box, but it's already expensive compared to competitors. And when you're using iPhone quality chipsets in a set-top box, it's a lot of overkill. And the price tag that comes with it.
I should point out, though, that the other guys are doing it. Roku's got a 4K Roku Ultra. I have a Shield, which is admittedly quite
They're
expensive.
Using cheap bills of goods that Apple's not using.
Right.
And Apple needs to make a dedicated Apple TV chip.
Oh, interesting idea. Yeah.
I think they just need to make it special. I really can't see a big difference between the Apple TV and a Roku. I don't know how to recommend.
There's one difference. You get iTunes and you get Apple Music, right?
Outside of things that Apple can prevent other companies from doing, that's not a really proud way of innovation. It's like I'm actually considering buying a second NVIDIA Shield for the bedroom because every time I'm using I got the latest Apple TV in the bedroom. I've got the NVIDIA Shield in the living room, and I just keep missing the way that the Shield works upstairs. And also, if there's a way to turn off that stupid having the TV app as the central concierge when you hit the home button, I have not found it.
Move to Canada. You don't have to worry about that.
There's a setting.
I hate it. I know. To me
that was a blatant power grab by Apple that I really disliked.
It's stupid. It's so easy to simply. I was expecting there to be an option somewhere. Okay, well, what if there must be an option to say what do I want the home button to go to? Do I want it to go to the app launcher or do I want to go to TV? And it's like there's the historical thing about how in user interfaces they always count the number of clicks it takes the user to get to from where they are to the thing they want to do. And there's always it always takes me 2 clicks because the thing that I want to get to is never in the TV app. Never, not once. It's always like, never. So I have to tap it again to get to the YouTube app or tap it again to get to the Hulu app.
You can change the home button behavior. You just look in I've done it because that drives me crazy too.
I can't find it.
It's in there. I'll find it for you.
Okay. I'll keep looking.
It's in there. It's probably, as is often the case with Apple's settings, somewhere that you wouldn't least expect it. So you just have to go through all the settings to find it. I do think this is going to become important. I'll tell you why. Not because the Apple TV is an important business, but almost all the new TVs being sold are 4K. So people are just not going to look at devices that don't support their new TVs. And, there's no other way to get iTunes and Apple Music into your home theater system. So if they do what Andy did and buy Shield, they're going to start buying the same movies. There's no appreciable difference between Google movies and TV or Amazon's movies and TV's availability. It's the same. I don't think there's any exclusives to Apple, to iTunes. Maybe in music there is, but not in television and
there's no
movies.
Portability though, so you can't move stuff you bought on one service onto another.
Well, there is because that's why you buy it on Google, because then you can play it on YouTube, which means you can play it on everything, including your Apple TV. Apple's going to lose this market very rapidly. The market's shifting, and they're going to lose it.
I don't disagree, but
Okay.
I don't trust any of them. Like I thought Amazon is cross-platform until they decide they don't want to support a competing TV box.
Well, I
and
agree.
It's not available in that box.
No, you could. It's on YouTube. It's on Roku. It's on my NVIDIA Shield as of the last update.
Yep.
And
But it's up
and
to
I
them
do
where
I
it
do
is.
see I do see your point that they have the ability to stop supporting anything that is not their own store, but Apple is not, and they are right now, and they don't see any indication of skipping that over. Google also, I'm saying that I absolutely under no circumstances can I recommend anybody buy content from the iTunes store. There is no upside whatsoever to it, and huge downside to it. I'm not going to. I can spend especially because I'm a cable cutter. If there is a series that I really, really love and I don't want to just add a subscription to my Sling account or whatever, I will buy the entire season and own it in HD. And I have no faith whatsoever that I will ever. I can't be spending hundreds of dollars on something that requires me to buy an iPad or requires me to own an Apple TV. That's stupid.
Bingo.
That's offensive on a basic level.
Yeah.
Although
And
for a long time
I don't happen to believe that Google is going to cut that off anytime soon, because if you want to be more simple about it, their business model is that it is to their advantage to have the YouTube app on every single platform they can get. That will help them to sell more content. Apple has never created the indication that we were going to help you to become platform agnostic. We will let you, we feel so good about our services that we will let you use them on any device whatsoever. No, there's a certain amount of lock-in and not always a whole bunch of benefit. So I will never, until the situation fundamentally changes, I will always recommend actively that people not buy copy-protected content from the iTunes store unless it's an app.
I don't disagree. Like I do blame DRM as the main culprit, but a lot of people don't have a choice still. It's like up until recently, we only had iTunes, and then we got Google, and now we've just gotten Amazon.
Right.
So it's not always.
Yeah, many of us have a library of stuff that we purchase on iTunes. I can guarantee you I'm not going to add to the size of that library. I might still rent from Apple because that doesn't really matter. But when I buy stuff, I am not buying it on iTunes. That's for sure.
I know a lot of people who still buy the platter and then rip it because they can still do that. And
Right.
then
Nope, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I try to, I either rent because I just want to watch it once, or if I want to own it, I will buy it even on DVD if I have to. I would much rather have a standard resolution rip that is definitely going to work that I can put on my server and move onto any device I want. Right. As we speak, on my NAS last night, I had bought a brand new 128 gigabyte thumbnail drive, USB 3, put it into the USB slot, and was moving my entire music library, duplicating my entire music library on it, and a whole bunch of TV shows and movies, because now I like the idea of I can basically move this between have this library that instead of syncing before I leave for a bunch of travel I'm going to be doing next month, I can just simply decide that if I have a Raspberry Pi and this, I can basically plug this $20, $30 box into the HDMI port of the TV wherever I go to, and have my entire music library and 100 hours of TV and movies. And the TV and movies are going to be there because I was able to put it into some sort of non-DRM format. And similarly, I can just simply plug it into my MacBook and just watch this all the time. That's the sort of flexibility you get when you're not locked into one system. This DRM is not good for anybody. But again, at least buy it in a format where you're not going to be locked into buying the same phone for the rest of your life, or the same tablet for the rest of your life, or the same TV box for the rest of your life.
Ultraviolet. I'm going all in.
I would guess most people aren't really going to buy and rip stuff, though. That's probably an enthusiast thing to do, right?
It's that's definitely next level sort of stuff. But again, you can still buy. I do recommend. Amazon is a little bit slower to support. Has been a little bit slower to support other platforms than they once were.
Right.
But because the fact that they're not supporting Apple TV is a really black mark on their business there.
I admit
on their commitment platform. But Google seems to be, we will, if we can put our YouTube app on it, we will let you have your entire DRM library on it, and that's good enough for me.
I admit I did yesterday order the Blu-ray of Once Upon a Time in America when I learned that you could get the original 4-hour and 11-minute cut. 4-hour and 11-minute cut on DVD.
That is as an aside, I love how freaky that movie is, where there is an ending, but you're free to decide whatever happens.
Have you seen the full version? Because the theatrical release was cut down by 2 hours. and made
Yeah,
no
I've
sense
heard-
as a result,
I've
right?
not seen the full version.
No.
Oh, it's fantastic. It is.
Well, it was only was it like a $12 Blu-ray purchase? So I thought, if this is the only way I can own it, this is what I'm gonna. Actually, sorry, $26, but still a good deal.
I got $26.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna make
had
another $26.
I had a spring for it. I didn't know the whole story of it, but it was released in its full version at Cannes at the film festival and got a 15-minute standing ovation. And then, of course, Hollywood got it and said, we can't release a 4-hour movie. We're going to cut it down in half, and released, as one would expect, a completely incomprehensible mishmash, which didn't get very good reviews, as in fact was mocked. It's often considered like this horrific, bizarre movie. So I've never seen the full uncut version. So I'm looking forward to it.
It's supremely intricate the way the plot works. So that it's kind of like if you had The Usual Suspects and you decided to cut 30 minutes out of it. It's okay. You can make it into a conventional whodunit, but then you'll have a really conventional whodunit as opposed to something brilliant.
I learned about it. I don't know how I stumbled on it from this website, Cinephilia and Beyond. Once Upon a Time in America, a butchered film rising up as a phoenix, and it talks about the whole story of this. And, by the way, has a PDF of the screenplay.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, 400 pages.
Heaven's Gate is my white whale because there was this wonderful book called Final Cut that was the vice president at United Artists, the company that got, in many ways, ceased to exist because of the failure of this movie. Wrote this beautiful first person a story about here's how this disaster happened from my point of view, and there was a 3-hour 20-minute version that debuted at Cannes. There was that people didn't understand, and then when it flopped at Cannes, they cut it down to like 2 hours and 20 minutes for release. But the original version that they screened for the studio was 5.5, 6 hours. And every time I saw the theatrical release version that didn't make sense but looked like there was something there. I saw then the Cannes version that still didn't make sense, but it made more sense. And now I'm just like, I've heard floating around the underground video, there is like the 6-hour, no way in hell it could possibly be a released version. And I keep thinking that there must be a version of this movie that's actually brilliant.
Because it was mocked, right? But Cimino is a great director, so there must be something there. Yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe
now when Waterworld comes out in its uncut glory, that's when I'm going to get excited.
Yeah. Well, I had no, not to turn this into Mac Movies Break Weekly, but I had the same experience with The Abyss, where I remember seeing it on video shortly after it was originally released, and it was okay. It was kind of not really a very James Cameron action movie. And then when they restored it for Laserdisc and they put back in everything that was in the original cut, and they also finished a sequence that, after they realized they had to cut it down, they said, okay, well, we're not even going to do the effects for this last sequence. It became one of my favorite movies of all time, James Cameron or no. So there's always it's like the gambler, like, I've lost $15,000, but if I just keep gambling, I'll make it all back.
There is a point to this, though, which is that digital technology has at least given us a chance, and nice home theaters and great TVs, to experience these movies as they were intended. I doubt, I have to look, but I very much doubt that Amazon offers Once Upon a Time in America in its 4-hour, 11-minute version on streaming.
Yeah, it's too bad. Like, for instance, Amadeus is only whatever package the studio offers to streaming services. They only offer the restored edition, which I think is really, really damages the original theatrical cut. And so that's why I had to buy it on Blu-ray and then despecialize it. I had to cut out all the scenes they added in.
Wow.
Just so that on my home library I would have what I think is the real version of Amadeus, because they don't have the original version available.
Saw that on Broadway with Frank Langella, one of my greatest Broadway experiences. It was an amazing, amazing show. Here, Andy, just for your delectation, is how you turn off that crap TV hub. This is an Apple Insider. You go into settings, remotes and devices, and then there's a home button setting there, which you can set back from TV app to home screen on your Apple TV.
Okay.
Hallelujah. It's the first thing I did.
I was not thinking it would be under remotes.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. That's always the problem.
Apple TV is a device. Okay.
Yeah. It's to me, it's always it's the same thing on the iPhone. You know, you find things in the strangest places. You just have to read through all of those settings. We're going to take a break.
Christmas tree the entire structure.
Christmas tree the entire structure. Oh, my watch is ringing. I like this. It's local marketing. Should I answer it?
Actually, it's funny. My mom lost her phone the other day, and I didn't know it because she was talking to me on the Apple Watch for the first time, and she was so happy. She's like, my watch rang, and I answered it, and now I'm talking to you.
Miss a call.
And then we showed her how to page her iPhone, and she went and found her iPhone.
I do that almost every day. Every day.
She felt like a secret agent.
It's good to have a son who's in technology.
Well, she just texted me. She was like, I took a phone call on my watch.
Sadie, guess where I'm calling you from? My wristwatch. Yes, my son set it up for me.
From Kara Swisher is going to be on Twit, I think this Sunday, from her excellent Recode Decode podcast. She's talking to Ron Johnson, who is head of retail at Apple, and of course created the first Apple stores. But Johnson said, Steve said the Genius Bar is so idiotic, it'll never work. It'll never work. So if you want to hear the genesis of the Apple Store, Recode Decode this week with Kara Swisher and Ron Johnson. So this is a quote. Johnson said, he said to me, it's Thanksgiving weekend coming up. Why don't you write down what you would do for a store? How would you approach retail? Tell me about it. So I went back, wrote this 10-page thesis of why Apple should do stores, which they should be like, blah, blah, blah. I get the call, hey, can you come back? I walk in. Jobs goes, hey, thanks for coming back. I said, what do you think of my thesis? And he goes, well, I didn't like it very much, but that's okay. Let's talk. And that's how he got the job. I remember the day I came in and told Steve about the Genius Bar idea. He says, that's so idiotic. It'll never work. He said, Ron, you might have the right idea, but here's the big gap. I never met someone who knows technology, who knows how to connect with people. They're all geeks. You can call it the Geek Bar. Johnson defended the Genius Bar, said, kids who are in their 20s today grew up in a very different world. They all know technology, and that's who you're going to get to work in the store. The next day, Jobs called Apple's counsel to trademark the phrase Genius Bar. What a great story. We'll have more in just a moment. Annie Anako from the Chicago Sun-Times. And by the way, thank you, IPDTL. We're trying a new video system instead of Skype because we've had so much trouble with lip sync lately in Skype. Skype changed their codec about, a few months ago from Silk to something else, and it's been terrible. And we thought we'd try this new thing, IPDTL, and it's, I think, working. What do you think? You said you're hearing some clicks?
I'm hearing some clicks from your end, but it might be through the browser. It might be a plugin that I've got here.
Yeah, we don't hear them at this end.
For me.
Your lip sync's good, your picture's good, your sound's good, so I'm very happy.
I'll drink a glass of water while Funky, the technical...
Yes, he's doing ventriloquism tricks, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Also with us, Rene Ritchie from imore.com, which also has an article on how to use the Apple TV app and change that. And I should have linked to that sooner. Sorry.
I'm still on Skype, but no. It's quite good. Thank you.
Actually, Skype works fine with you, and I think it's, I don't know what it is. But it's nice to have an alternative, so we may be using more of this IPDTL. Our show today brought to you by Texture. If you love magazines, and who doesn't, some of the best journalism in the world is still being done in magazines. I like magazines because often the magazine articles are written for somebody who's going to sit down and take the time to read it. You know, the New Yorker, the National Geographic. I love the images. Vanity Fair, there's always a great piece in Vanity Fair. There's always a great article in Rolling Stone. Actually, they're doing amazing journalism these days. The Atlantic, I read cover to cover. But I don't want to actually subscribe to all those magazines. That'd be hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And if I buy a newsstand issue, that's actually even more expensive. But I was so glad when I found Texture. Texture is an app. It's like Netflix for magazines. It lets you subscribe to more than 200 of the best magazines in the world for $10 a month. All your favorites. You can actually favorite any individual magazine. It'll download automatically. You get the current edition from the newsstand, but you also get back episodes, back issues. You also get things you can't get in print, like videos. The Sports Illustrated swimsuit issues in there, but also videos, right? National Geographic's images look so much better, frankly, on your iPad than they ever could when they're printed. And then I get also stuff that I wouldn't probably subscribe to, like Variety and Billboard, Ad Age. Those are magazines for my business. And to have them there available to me is really fantastic. If you like housing, you'll love Dwell. If you like fashion, you'll love Marie Claire. Vogue is in there. Everything's in there. Texture was selected as one of Apple's top iPad apps for 2016. It's certainly one of my favorites. And when I travel, I'm flying out to see my son tomorrow. You better believe I've got Texture on my iPad loaded up and ready to read. The Texture app, it's entirely digital. It's environmentally friendly. No more coffee table clutter. And you're going to get all the magazines you want. Search them. Yeah, that's another thing you can't do with a print magazine. Mark what you like. Check out back issues. View bonus video content. And they have curation, too, that'll help you find articles in magazines you maybe don't even have heard of. Time magazine's in there. It's great for investigative journalism, politics, fashion, news. Yeah, gossip, of course. I get my People magazine fix, too. I love it. You will, too. That's why we've got a 14-day free trial for you. 2 weeks free when you go to Texture, T-E-X-T, like text, get it? Get it? Get it? Texture, TEXTURE.com/twit. 2 weeks free. Give it a try. I think you really will like it, especially if you've got a trip coming up. Texture.com/twit. I didn't mention this, but you can have 5 different devices with one Texture subscription. So I have it on my iPhone, on my iPad. Lisa's got it on her iPhone and iPad, and it still leaves one over. So it really works out great. Texture.com/twit. Also,
awesome.
Huh?
Teen Vogue has been awesome lately, too.
Teen Vogue's political. It's so funny. Those teens are woke.
They're schooling. Yeah, they're schooling people.
I love it. Apple board members getting stock grants, each of them worth $253,000. So nice little, just like, here you go. Of course,
yep.
If you're like Warren Buffett, you're going to hold that stock. Hold that stock.
Hold that stock.
Let it grow through the magic of compound interest. That seems like a small amount. They get paid also, though, right?
Yeah, but I think it's always an honorarium sort of a thing.
Yeah.
A stipend.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Actually, you also get little perks because, for instance, Al Gore's got a new version of his movie, An Inconvenient Truth, which they screened this week in Palo Alto, and of course, Al Gore is on the Apple board, and Tim Cook shows up to introduce it in the theater. Silicon Valley film debut of An Inconvenient Truth, Truth to Power. In his opening remarks, Cook said, while there are signs all around of the climate crisis, there is plenty of reason to be optimistic. Renewable energies are developed and deployed around the world. And actually, Al Gore praised Apple after the showing, the screening, commending them for using 100% renewable energy in some countries and pushing hard to do the same on a global scale. Of course, their new Apple Spaceship Campus is 100% solar. And, of course, Greenpeace last month declared Apple the greenest tech company for the 3rd straight year in a row.
I thought you were going to say perks like an updated version of Aperture.
Yeah, well, that would be the secret perk that no one's talking about, literally. Aperture update just for you as a board member.
Mr. Gall, here's your update.
All right, we got to get back to this conversation we had last week. Remember, the Wall Street Journal said Lightning will be replaced by Type-C. Well, they didn't quite say that. Now Ming-Chi Kuo says they got it wrong. Was it sloppy reporting or just they didn't understand? This doesn't make sense either, but Ming-Chi Kuo says, no, they're going to keep the Lightning port, but on the other end of the cable will be a Type-C adapter, and they'll have a Type-C power brick in there.
That's what they have for the iPad Pro 12-inch for the supercharging. They have
and I have a dozen of those cables. I mean, that would not be a big story,
no. But people hear, I mean, like, Leo, we don't like it's broken telephone, right? Like you hear a little bit and then you add it in with all the other stuff.
So last week, both of you kind of said, well, it would certainly be painful for Apple if they had abandoned Lightning, but it would also be a good thing and the proper thing to do in the long run. Do you think you're going to that maybe that's not what we're going to get in the new iPhone?
We did a good job of hedging that they were maybe misinterpreting it. It was that it was USB-C on the other end.
I would like to see USB-C, but I can also understand why Apple would be very reluctant to cause that much pain.
I think Andy's mic is off.
Oh, Andy's muted.
Yes.
Unmute, sir. Press that button. He said before the show, one thing I got to learn with this new software, where the mute button is.
It's nice. I was telling you that I like the way that when you go into like full screen mode, whatever, it makes better use of the screen real straight. But it doesn't put a mute button on the screen as it does with Skype. But yeah, I was just going to say that I think that Rene and I were in complete agreement that neither of us believe that we want to be blamed for getting this wrong in September when we find out. Only that I don't see Apple as having a problem with dropping Lightning after 5 years. If they think that, hey, if we're going to be putting USB-C on every single one of our devices in the future, why we leave out the iPhone?
Yeah.
I also see them thinking that it's okay for us to make the Lightning connector into, well, we want to have a connector that we absolutely control and we can change at any given moment. If we want to decide that, gosh, we thought that we could. If we truly want to have a phone without any bezel whatsoever, we need to be able to modify that connector so that it will still accept Lightning cables, but it still will fit in whatever space remains after we have a sheet of OLED that has to cover up every single square inch of the front of it. But yeah, I don't think Apple would be pretty broken up about the idea that, oh no, you mean that we're going to sell lots and lots of $35 cables to people? Oh, that's terrible. What will we? Because we already have the fire marshal on our butts about blocking the exits with all that money anyway. Dang, we're gonna have to just put in the floorboards and
yeah, the MFI thing is a rounding error for Apple. Like that, they just want the control over that. But also, Lightning and USB-C is an implementation detail. They will use whatever gives them the best advantage at any point in time, and they will, as they have in the future, be relentlessly fearless about changing that. At a moment's notice.
They're going to have to do it at some point, right?
Fearless.
Well, there'll be mini USB-C, or there'll be something else anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's the real problem. You switch to USB-C 5 years from now, you have to switch again to whatever the next thing is.
Remember, I went through. We all did that. USB-A to USB Mini to USB Micro.
Yeah, it was awful.
Right, and it bears mentioning that even in the Android space, you don't know if you're going to have a micro USB. Most are switching to USB-C. I would really love to have the ideal of having one power brick to rule them all. But I know that I'm always going to be traveling with at least 3 different kinds of cables all the time.
Oh, it's the word. Like Russell Holly today was just looking at, because the Nintendo Switch turns out doesn't just charge off of power bricks the way you might want it to. Even though you plug it in, it's incredibly sensitive, and and this is like a brand new device, and it doesn't work with all the power bricks that everybody already has, and you just want to throw your hands up in the air.
It's micro USB or USB-C on the charger of that?
Well, I think you just plug it in with whatever the adapter is into a power brick, but it's incredibly sensitive to the voltage and the amperature and all those different things to make it not on a wide variety of them.
That's too bad, because it only gets 3 hours. I bought one. Mine comes this week, but it only gets 3 hours battery life, and I'm thinking for a plane trip, I might want to use like an Anchor battery or something.
We can make these gizmos maddening. We'll figure out a way to do it.
Yeah. More Apple hardware plans based on completely flimsy evidence. A patent application that shows an Apple Pencil holder for iPads, again, references use with iPhone. Of course, you're going to make a patent. You're going to cover all your bases. I don't think that means there'll be a pencil. Although Tim might have kind of let slip a little something that the iPhone, well, this goes back to the iPhone 7, which did not support the pencil, but maybe the iPhone 8?
I mean, the pencil supports anything Apple wants it to. So Tim Cook Cook probably has used it.
But you have to give up 3D Touch if you do a pencil, right?
So the difference, and this is a little bit complicated, but Force Press is a name for a blanket of different technologies implemented in different ways. So on the Apple Watch, I believe it shoots sideways, and that's why it's a binary state. It can't tell where your finger is on the display. It can just tell that you're putting pressure. On the iPhone, it shoots up and down from the LED light, and that's why it can do both pressure and position. So you have both those things. On the trackpads, it has 4 sort of mechanisms that it uses to balance those things out. So it's all wide range of technology. The Apple Pencil, because the technology for Force Press doesn't support really large screens, it can't accurately measure deformation on a 9.7-inch screen, for example. They put all the pressure-sensitive stuff in the tip of the pencil. So you could take the tip of the pencil and stick it on an iPhone, and you would have, you'd still be able to read it off the pencil. It's just a question of whether Apple wants to do it or not.
I had no idea it was that complicated.
They make stuff look so easy.
Yep.
Wow. I don't know why I'd want a pencil on a phone, to be honest. Although
I like the idea of a Note. It's like the world's smallest Wacom tablet. I've always loved that idea.
Yeah, the Galaxy Note, and that's really was beloved partly because of the stylus, huh?
Digital field notes. Yeah. I mean, the idea has a lot of appeal.
I never really used it, but I'm not an artist. You're an artist. When they
it's not.
Go ahead.
It's not just that. I would love if they had the pencil support for the iPad Mini. Because now when I'm in briefings, whether it's like a keynote sort of thing or even just a one-on-one, I prefer now to take notes, to handwrite my notes on my iPad, because I just don't know how free form the idea when they present ideas to me, I don't know if it's going to lend itself to type outline type outline. And sometimes you just have to and there's something that you didn't think was important, but it really is important. And so you find rather than saying, hi, this is important, make sure you check this out, I can just put more and more exclamation marks next to it as I go. It's the canonical feature where don't even sweat what people are going to do with it. Figure out that people will find their own interaction with it. Well, some people will use it as an art tablet. Some people will use it just so they can have meaningful input while they're wearing gloves. Some people will use it as a note taker. If there's any way they could do that, I'd love to see them try. I think that Apple is not, but Apple's not a let's throw a pencil at the wall and see if it sticks. They will probably think that, and we've made a shorter one that will fit inside of the special folio that we're selling, and we have this new APIs, and we're going to give you guidelines on how this all works. So I'd love to see it, and Lord knows that everything that we're hearing about the iPhone 8, for instance, points to they've got to have some sort of differentiation between competing phones and also the previous year's phone, and it's getting harder and harder to do without really dramatic hardware features, because every single feature that people have proven that they want and they value enough to pay money for is already kind of universal across the board. So now they have to figure out a way, how do we make this so materially different from the iPhone 7 Plus that people who have are happy with their iPhone 6s will absolutely want to upgrade, and so the people who maybe have been tempted by some of the press around the camera on the Pixel phone, let's say, decide no, well, I'm going to stick with my iPhone because God, I really want that pencil support. So there's a lot of math here now.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Nintendo Switch, good news: the controllers, the little side controllers, the Joy-Cons, and the optional Pro controller all work with your Apple Mac.
So you can have the good one, and you can give your least favorite friend the one that has a controller in the weird position.
They connect as individual controllers, so even when they're attached to the dock for the 2-joystick experience, Mac OS only recognizes them as a single controller. I have no idea what I just read, but if you have them, you will know what that means, I presume.
One is positioned for your thumb, and one for the fleshy part of your palm.
They're a little tiny. Frankly, I think the only way I'll be using the Switch is as a portable device with those docked, playing Zelda.
How much fun!
What was the site that said it's great? It plays Zelda, does little else, but at least it's very good at playing Zelda.
Well, many have said it's the best Zelda ever. I have shameful admission, I've never played Zelda.
I haven't either. I played all the Marios, but none of the Zeldas.
Yeah, that's funny. Florence Ion, same thing. She said I had them. I'm the right age, as are you. But I was so involved with Mario, I never got to Zelda. I think it's two different styles of gaming or something. I don't know. What are you laughing at?
No, it's just it's.
Are you
it's,
a Mario
like
or a Zelda?
No, it's like the 10-year college reunion where it's like, oh boy, I really wanted to go after Zelda, but I was in this relationship with Mario. I had 2 or 3 years into it. We bought controllers together. I just felt like I had too much invested.
I'm a little old to be getting into Zelda at this age, but I'm going to try it. Never too old. I'll never try it.
And Mario's coming,
I'm
right?
sorry,
Yeah, Mario's coming. Yeah.
Me and Sonic the Hedgehog, we still got a good thing going.
And by the time WWDC is over and everyone has time to play again, all the games will be out.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Go sleep till dub.
If you use Lightroom Mobile, another reason to use it on your iPhone, it now shoots not only RAW, which is done for some time, but it updates on both iPhone and Android to shoot HDR. Shoots 3 shots very quickly, but you have to have a modern phone, iPhone 6 or later, and one of the more modern Android phones to do it. Because it's, hardware-wise, taking 3 shots instantly is hard to do.
2015 iPhone, that's not that.
No, in fact, the iPhone's the iPhone's pretty good for it. It's the Android phones. I think only the Pixel. It's very limited which ones would work with.
It's only very, very recently that there has even been Android hardware that can shoot at that kind of a burst rate, or at least reliably.
Right.
Where if the software asks, please shoot the next 3 frames as fast as you can do it, said, all right, of course you have the Facebook app loaded, so we're talking about 1 frame every 5 seconds, but so long as the leaves on the trees aren't moving, we're good.
I'll show you. This is. I don't know if you can see this over my shoulder or not, but yeah, I guess you kind of can. There's a drop down. You can choose from automatic, which is the default professional, or HDR now. And then I'll show you. I'll take a picture and you can see how fast it does the HDR. So let's watch. You gotta don't blink. That was 3 shots, and then it composes them almost instantly. And this is on an iPhone 7 Plus, so it's pretty good. They're not like blown out HDR. Although I haven't looked deeply. You may have. Wait a minute. That actually hadn't finished. Your HDR captures are processing. Check your process here. So it does take a little while. It has to upload it, process it, and then download it again. Can you control? Have you played with it, Andy? Can you control it? Is there a slider for how much HDR it's applying? Or
I only downloaded it last night. It took a couple shots of my office. I haven't tried it that much. Works really nicely. It's right now we're going for those really good subtle HDR effects where you don't really notice that anything's happened. But it just puts a smile on my face to see that now all these app manufacturers and all these OS manufacturers are shifting away from let's figure out a magical way to make make better processors and better image sensors, because they're all going to be buying it from the same source anyway. And now it's like, gosh, we now have a super overpowered phone that has way too much CPU to do the things we ask of it. What if we were to just redline the CPU to do as much clever processing as possible? That's why the HDR mode on any phone is going to be if you have a 2-year-old phone with Lightroom that has the HDR mode on it, it can take pictures that are about as it's the possibility that you can take pictures that are about as good as something with the next generation image sensors, the next generation processors. It's really, really great stuff. I really encourage everybody to try out Lightroom Mobile.
It's free.
It works it's free. It even works if you don't have a subscription, so you can still use it as a camera app. And it really is my preferred app for if you want to put the iPhone into what you might call real camera mode, where you want to have some control over what happens. Like, let's say you're taking pictures of your kid and he or she is acting like a little maniac as usual. One of the consistent quirks of the iPhone camera app is that the last thing it will try to do it will always try to make up for a lack of light by increasing the shutter speed, which means that you'll always have a blurred little maniac. But if you go into Lightroom Mobile, you can say, no, just give me whatever you do, shoot at 1/500th of a second, and you will have frozen motion no matter how you do. And then you can improve the exposure later on.
This is an HDR because it's pitch black in the back here. And it's very bright in the front. And it did, I think, a pretty good job. But there doesn't seem like there's any sliders. Well, maybe, what's this? There's an edit button, but I don't know if there's any sliders that I think that's what you get. What you see is what you get.
I don't know. Actually, I didn't even try to see if exposure compensation works.
Yeah.
And remember that that's very much in vogue. It's not HDR used to almost be like a style where, oh boy, that looks really HDR-ish. Now it's not so much that it's not so much to make sure that the background of this shot in your studio is well lit. It's that if you are sitting where you are right now, your human eye would be able to see there is some light hitting the back wall of your studio. Would not be bright, but you would be able to see it. And so that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to do very naturalistic HDR. On my cheap, I don't have an expensive, my personal daily carry phone, the one I own, is a mid-range $300 phone. And really, I have to admit that the improvements that have been made to camera apps through more naturalistic HDR have almost equalized it with expensive phones that were released a year later, costing twice as much. I hope we see
Lightroom
that trend continue.
and Russell Brown told me this from Adobe, that their intent for Lightroom Mobile is to effectively give it all of the features of Lightroom eventually. I mean, you've got curves in here. You do have selective editing now. I mean, there's a lot you can. This is amazing. Pretty incredible. And when you're working with a raw photo, there's a lot you can do, right? I mean, this is
it's capturing so much data. Yeah. There is a little bit of a learning curve. It's not like Snapseed or the Photos app where it asks you the question, do you want this to be brighter or dimmer, and just will make some decisions for you. But it's the only one that says, gee, I don't know why there's sort of like a bluish cast over this thing. I don't want to change the tint. I just want the blues to be less noticeable.
Right.
And you can just here's a palette of the 7 major colors in this picture. Do you want just take the blues and desaturate that a little, and boom, perfect.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, this is a power tool for a serious photographer. Right. And I think the main reason you would possibly use the HDR is things like sunsets, where you're not looking for a painterly view. You just want to be able to see the sun and the beach at the same time. And I think this is going to be a great choice for that.
That's what I'm on about. It's no longer about, oh, I'm taking a picture of a sunset or I'm taking a picture of the inside of a church where there's candles and there's light streaming in. It really is becoming, let's make this as naturalistic as possible. So it really is aping the effect of having a large camera with a large sensor. It's fantastic.
Yeah, very exciting.
I'm so impressed with this stuff.
What a great thing to tie in with the iPhone 7 Plus. We have a great camera.
Yeah, and I mean, the iPhone is still the best camera out there.
Yeah.
All in all, start to finish, the best camera out there. And so when you start off with a company that's really trying to get the best sensor and the best image processing, and then you add in all of this synthetic processing after that, oh boy, it's like saying, how about pie? And now let's put ice cream on top of that, and now let's put fudge sauce on top of all of that. It's like, I thought I was happy with this great pie, then I was really happy with the ice cream, and now I feel as though I am one of God's beloved this day. Thank you very much.
I guess I should mention this rumor that just came in from Apple World today. They've noted that there's a availability on the, you know how you have the Apple Store and availability check. If you've been looking for 12.9-inch iPad Pro, it's been unavailable. 2 to 3 week shipping time. What's really interesting, they say, clicking on the check availability link for the 12.9-inch iPad Pro shows April 4th availability for any color, storage size, or connectivity choice. And they're tying that to a rumor that seems to have no basis except for that, to the idea that there might be an Apple event on April 4th. I think that does not make a lot of sense, especially since Apple events don't necessarily, in fact, often don't coincide with day and date of availability. But April 4th, the day to watch if you're looking for a new iPad. Not long to wait.
In any event, it's a good idea to, if you had the money socked aside and you were going to buy it,
wait.
Not a bad idea to wait at least to the end of April.
Yeah,
I don't know whether there's an event or not. There might be new hardware. It certainly wouldn't not. It wouldn't. Again, we're seeing this wonderful be able to hedge bets. It wouldn't not be a bad idea to consider. Yeah, it's.
You just never buy in March or September until there's an event.
Yeah. Yeah, and
wait till the end of the month.
I feel like we're going to see something, and probably Mac updates, right? iMac to Kaby Lake, perhaps.
And the 21 point was it 21.5, whatever that version is going to be interesting because Intel just didn't make the Skylake version of those chips. So Apple was forced to keep it on. What was it, Haswell, Broadwell, whatever it was before Skylake last year. And I don't know if they made it or not this year. I forgot to check. So it'll be interesting to see what they did.
Yeah. Let's take a break. When we come back, your picks of the week. Gentlemen, line them up. But first, a word from Blue Apron. Last night was salmon with a delicious Tangelo sauce and farro. It was fabulous. And I didn't have to do any shopping. I didn't even have to think about a menu plan. I just came home. Our Blue Apron box had an amazing meal. Actually, it's 3 amazing meals. You can choose from a plan for couples or a plan for families of 4. And everything you need to cook an incredible dinner. And you don't even have to have any skills because they walk you through the whole thing. They even got videos on the site if you want. Blue Apron's goal is they are the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in their country. Their goal is to make incredible home cooking accessible to everyone, to turn people on to what is the most fun, creative, and satisfying things you can do to cook for your loved ones. It is awesome. Delicious meals. And by the way, you're not paying more for the privilege. This I really have to emphasize. Because Blue Apron doesn't have the brick and mortar and, the clerks and all the things that make a grocery store expensive, you're paying about 60% more at the grocery store than you are at Blue Apron. Less than $10 per person. Each meal comes with a step-by-step, easy-to-follow recipe card, exactly the right ingredients. If you need 2 carrots, you get 2 carrots. There's no waste. 40 minutes or less. The house fills with amazing aromas. They use a lot of aromatics like ginger and scallions and shallots. And, oh, man, the other day I made something with a Japanese barbecue sauce I'd never had before that was incredible. I liked it so much I went on Amazon to buy a bottle. And that's, by the way, the other thing that's really cool. They won't repeat recipes more than once a year. But once you make a recipe, you now know how to use that ingredient. You now know how to do something with it. And you will use it. So I love to cook, and I like to cook for Lisa and Michael, but I kind of get in a rut because I know what they like, and so I cook the same 4 or 5 meals over and over. With Blue Apron, I've expanded my repertoire, and now I have some amazing things I can do. Get a chicken breast and know 12 different ways to make it delicious. That's nice. Blue Apron delivers to 99% of the continental United States. There's no weekly commitment. You get deliveries only when you want them, and you choose the menu items you want. You just go on the website so you can customize it for your dietary needs. They have vegetarian plans. Yes, absolutely. Get the stuff that you look at that salmon piccata with orzo and broccoli. That's so good. I made that. Oh. How about pork chops and miso butter with bok choy and marinated apple? I've eaten much more bok choy than I would have in the past because I've learned really great ways to cook it. And, of course, it's very good for you. But if you know a great way to cook a vegetable that makes it delicious, that's really cool. Chili glazed catfish. And, by the way, no frozen meats, no frozen fish. It's all fresh from local farms. Check out this week's menu. Oh, my mouth always waters when I do these. I don't know why they give these at lunchtime. Check out this week's menu and get 3 meals free with your first purchase with free shipping at blueapron.com/MacBreak. We love our Blue Apron box every week. You will too. You'll love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals for the people you love with Blue Apron or just for yourself. blueapron.com/MacBreak. Blue Apron's a better way to cook, and we thank them for their support of MacBreak Weekly. Andy Yanako, kick us off with your pick of the week.
My pick is kind of a double pick. One of my favorite YouTube channels is Tech Moan. Tech
Moan?
Moan, as in moan about what you don't like about things. And it's this guy named Matt who is in England who buys a lot of like vintage technology that you probably have not heard of, and then does this really in-depth explanation of the history of it. And one of his favorite things that catches his eye are like obsolete recording formats that you have never heard of, like the precursor to like the audio cassette that's like the size of a paperback book and holds 20 minutes. It'll go into, he's such a good videographer. And he recently, one of his latest video, he bought one of those sort of like muzak systems that you would buy for a store or for an office or for a warehouse, that you load it up with about, the company leases you the unit and a pile of these records of like just, elevator music that goes on for 7 hours. So it's like inside it's like an 8-disc changer. And part of the great stuff about the video too is that he has to buy these things and often they're broken, so he has to fix them. And even though he's not a technician, he's not a repair person. So you see an edited down version. Well, here's here's the state it was in when I got it, and here's how I had to fix it. And so again, he has a Patreon, and I was so. It's sort of thing. As soon as someone,
but this is a muzak machine. I mean, what does it sound like?
This latest one. Well, this is the other pick. He, as part of it's called the Seeburg 1000. But as part of it, he said that there is a company that licensed the music, and so you can actually for free stream as if you have a Seeburg 1000 music, like elevator music system in your home office.
So we listen
play
to it?
this. Exactly. Please.
Let's hear like
some 1960s,
Seaborg,
70s, and 80s.
We're hearing Night and Day on the Seaborg 1000.
It'll be a short intro, but it's nothing but music.
Wow, this is wild. I don't know. Maybe it's not playing. What am I?
There you go.
So this you would hear. This is the kind of stuff you'd hear in the 60s in a department store.
60s or 70s. The latest one was there was the E.T. theme as a disco song that was released as part of the system at 82. And
so is this stuff copyrighted? What's the story with it?
I guess the company that streams this has licensed the music. So you can stream it for free. You can also buy an app that has it preloaded. After I watched his latest video that had like the machine and also, oh, by the way, there's also a website that has this stuff. Just as a joke, I wonder what that's like. And then I found myself just like keeping it on because there's some sort of contractor next door, or the neighbor was there was all these storms, so the buzzsaw was going.
It's so funny because at the time I remember hearing this stuff. It was like, oh God, this is awful. But now it's kind of campy and fun.
It's fun. It's entertaining. You also get to play Name That Tune, where it's like, oh my God, that is a bossa nova version of Smoke on the Water played by a 20-piece orchestra.
Oh my God, it's hysterical.
And it also cover up whatever noise is going on outside that is less pleasant.
And that's its intention, right? It's supposed to kind of.
Well, and so of course he also like reads like part of the sales literature about it. Oh, and it'll also help to get your workers more motivated and keep their energy level up. So I actually have this thing bookmarked, and there are times where I will just keep it running in the office when I'm just going through email and I just need something that is a little bit pleasant but not distracting enough that I can't focus on what I'm doing. And it's free.
Now, these are 29-second clips, though. They're not, or am I just looking at the wrong part? Well, this is if you want to buy the CD. Okay.
If you want to buy the CDs, you can buy them on CD, but the streaming is just the most of the songs are like 2.5 minutes long. If you go to the whatever button says stream it live, or excuse me, stream the whole thing, it really is like.
Oh, it's even got a little player. Oh, that's hysterical. So this will go forever.
It will just keep going.
Who needs Pandora?
I have not had the moral strength to listen to this for more than a couple of hours, but for at least a couple hours it will run.
So this is there's a little spoken word at the beginning, right?
At the very beginning.
There's no ads?
It's just no ads that I can hear.
This is my new Pandora.
Yep. It's like, or maybe you can use it to like drive kids away from your house.
That's what they should do. You know, a lot of times they have music playing outside. 7-Eleven.
Yeah, see, there's such a culture gap. Like, no joke. 2 nights ago, I was up until 4 a.m. listening to all my Husker Du albums like over and over again, which is a bad thing to do if you need to get to bed because Husker Du is pretty intense. But you know that I'm on the neighborhood. I'm sure like all the kids like think that that's the music that I'm listening to. Oh, Old Man Anatko is listening to the heavy swing big band. It's not even bad music. You know, a lot of music, modern day music is pretty kind of. It's inoffensive, but it's done at a very high level of execution. Like I said, if this were like a $10 a month streaming music service, I might be a little bit more sarcastic about it. But as a thing that's on my list of bookmarks, as something to listen to when I need some pleasant noise, it's pretty good. But a hard recommendation for Tech Moan channel.
Seriously, this looks fun,
especially as. I mean, just the fun of saying, oh my God, all the ways that companies try to deliver HD content before there was Blu-ray and streaming, all these schemes that kind of work but didn't really, all the different ways now I can buy Raiders of the Lost Ark on video formats that lasted about 2 months. You know, again, it's just really, really super, super entertaining stuff. And I'm super, super happy to be giving them however much money I'm giving them via Patreon for it. Highest recommendation.
Techmoan.com, and the Seaborg story is right there on the front page. And then they have a link there to the Seaborg 1000 background music library that can stream to your home, wherever you are. This is hysterical. Wow. Thank you, Andy. Great pick. My pick of the week is something I pick every time there's an update, and there often is a Nisus writer. You have to be an old-time Mac user to know about Nisus. This was the best third-party word processor available on the Macintosh for years. Then they stripped it down, just like Apple did with iMovie, and they made it kind of a dumb product, but they have slowly built it right back up, and it now has, I think, all the features that the original Nisus Writer Pro had. You may say, well, I got Pages. I don't need Nisus Writer. Oh, but Nisus Writer is a Mac classic. Highly recommended. $80 in the App Store for a single license. You can also do more, and you can get a demo if you want. There's still Nisus Writer Express, which is the kind of simplified version. That's free. But if you do a lot of word processing and you want a power tool, Nisus has always been the king of the hill, and it's still just fantastic. I really like it. It has a full grep search, which is, I use that all the time in BB Edit.
Yep.
Really handy. It's got a macro language that is a real programming language, and is very, very powerful. I don't know anybody who uses it still, but I like it. And I like having it on my Mac just because that was the good old days. Nisus Writer Express is not free. I'm sorry, it's $20. Thank you, chat room. Nisus, Nisus.com. Your pick of the week, Rene Ritchie.
So mine is sort of a Schrodinger's pick because it's neither alive nor dead right now. And what I mean by that is Sonos has announced a new speaker. It is the Sonos Playbase. Now, some of us have the Play Bar, which is sort of a traditional sound bar for home theater, and that you can mount on a wall or you can put in front of your TV. This is made expressly for TVs that are like furniture, that are on top of cabinets or on top of TV stands and things, and it goes right underneath it. And the nice thing about it is it's really
big.
well engineered.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's big. And there's a great video that they actually show you how they had to engineer it with this weird S sort of funnel to get proper acoustic ventilation. But the reason I'm mentioning it now is that it's only going to be available in April. But if you are already a Sonos customer, you can get advanced pre-ordering if you want this today, starting today when you go to Sonos.com.
So you'd use this in lieu of the sound bar, or?
Yes. Yeah, it's in lieu of the sound bar. It's just because you want something that's a little bit bigger, a little bit more powerful, a little bit. And the sound bars.
So you wouldn't need the sub with this, then, right? This does the sub.
I think you still would, because the picture has the sub in it.
Okay.
I think this is just giving you better sort of sound bar quality, and it's giving you that full solid finish instead of having sort of a speakery finish on the front.
Got it. $700 is not cheap, but no Sonos stuff is. On the other hand, if you're a Sonos user, you know and you love. Look at that. It's got this horn in it. Wow.
Yeah. No, it's super fascinating. It's super cool. And, if I was doing it again today, I might get this instead of the sound bar.
Yeah, I have a sound bar, unfortunately.
I have this love-hate relationship with Sonos where it's just so easy to use, but it uses the SPDIF connector and not HDMI. And I'm happy about that because all my HDMI stuff inevitably gets false HDCP copy protections. Then I lose my mind and throw my TV out the window. This doesn't do that, but also it doesn't support 7.1 yet. And it feels like that's something that they could add. Just let me buy please let me buy 2 more of your speakers and go 7.1.
Well, I have, and I think you need this if you want surround. You need this plus a sub plus the 2 Play ones.
That's what I have. Yeah.
Then we have
Although
that
I have Play 3s because my room is oddly shaped.
Oh, nice. Well, that's fancy. You're fancy.
I have an octagonal. Well, I have a studio sort of a setup, like it's an open concept, but it's an octagon, which is kind of hard to
Sonos is rapidly becoming the Klipsch or the Bose of internet radio and internet streaming sound. And the thing is, if you had a small apartment for $699, this is your stereo, because you're going to, of course, get all the Sonos streaming as well as the TV surround and all that stuff.
And if you wanted to, you could add a Play 1 or something to your bedroom or to the bathroom or something and have a connected speaker system that just fits exactly your needs in space.
Yeah. Have they announced, I know they announced that they would this year have integration with Amazon Echo. That still has not happened. I've seen since then that they've said not just Echo, but we're going to work with Google Home. We're going to work with everything. When is that? Do we know when that's happening?
I have not seen a date for it yet. I'm waiting for it. I mean, what's interesting for us is that previously we were seeing a lot of stuff that was Siri or Echo, for example, and now we're increasingly seeing a lot of our own writers just use both of them now, and they use them for different things and in different contexts.
Sonos says we want to be agnostic. Why would we don't want to tie to any one company?
Yeah,
that makes sense. If you can do it, that makes sense. I'm not sure how they're going to do it, but the demo, the video showed you being able to say to your Echo, play Sinatra in the living room, and it would just know where to go and how to do it, and that would be awesome.
It'd be like old school spy stuff where you say like Echo Sonos 1 activate.
Yeah. Rene Ritchie, you'll find him at imore.com. A great. I'm sorry, I stepped on your Sean. Do it again.
No.
I love it.
Authorization. Picard 51448.
Oh, it's Picard. Pardon me.
One ping.
Computer.
One ping.
Give me a thing, Vishal.
Thank you so much, Rene Ritchie. imore.com, the website to go to for all the how-tos. Of course, they have a how-to on how to change your TV app and your home button to the traditional Apple TV home and everything else. And Rene is a great resource for podcasts, too. His Apple Talk podcast is legendary. You'll find that also at imore.com. And Andy Anako writes for the Chicago Sun-Times. He's a regular technology reporter there, but he also has superpowers, secret superpowers, which he displays here every Tuesday for MacBreak Weekly and elsewhere on Replay FM for his other podcasts.
Relay FM, thank you.
Relay, I know, I'm sorry. I do that probably Freudian so that nobody will go there. Relay.fm. And everybody should listen to all of Andy's podcasts. So that's that. We do this show every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. It's 1900 UTC if you want to tune in and watch live or join us in the studio. We have a nice studio audience today. Just email tickets at twit.tv. We'll put a chair out for you. You can also join us in the chat room if you're watching live at irc.twit.tv. You can join us in the chat room anytime. It's open 24/7. Lots of friendly, nice people in there. Carefully moderated to make it family friendly. It's family friendly. And irc.twit.tv is both a website that you don't need a special client for, or if you're an IRC old hand, you can use your IRC client as well. You'll find this show at twit.tv/MBW if you want to download audio or video versions of it after the fact. We're on demand everywhere, frankly. Anywhere you get your podcasts, just subscribe to MacBreak Weekly. We saw in our recent survey that the number of people subscribing has dropped just 5%, but I thought that was kind of interesting. Last year was 80% of our listeners subscribed, got it every week. This year is 75%. And I think that comes from the fact that now you've got many other choices and you've got a podcast app and people probably just pick what they want to listen to. But would you do me a favor and subscribe? We like that. That way we know you're not going to miss one. Unfortunately, I have to give you some bad news now. Break time is over, so get back to work. I did that in the wrong order. Get back to work because break time is over.